Party. And their espousing of one nation conservatism is diabolic. I mean, these people are lying through their teeth because their policies are the complete opposite. So Anna Soubry, again, I would congratulate. Her speech is always pithy, to the point, going right to the jugular. She's a clever woman, and I hope she also has a part in a future, BREMAIN government. She has her own important contributions to make to rebuilding Britain. So I want to talk about morality. You see, fundamentally, I'm only a philosopher here. I'm not a politician. I'm commenting on politics because it's a bit in my face at the moment, and these crazy Brexiteers are threatening the stability of my country and its breakup. So I have to speak out. I'm a whistleblower. And I also live mainly in France, so the stability of all these people of British origin who now live in Europe is utterly threatened by these madmen and crazy people. So I'm sorry, as a doctor, I have to speak out. This patient is poisoned. It's about morality for me, and as a teacher of ethics, I've always taken a broad overview of different ethical theories, but every single ethical theory, from Kantian to utilitarian to Aristotelian to virtue ethics to situation ethics, the whole of academic study of ethics, which I've taught at A-level and university level, all of them say BREMAIN is the choice, and you need to read my book to understand what I'm saying. I'm shocked more academics, more philosophers aren't speaking out. I know A.C. Grayling is, I know one or two others are, but I don't know what on earth, what accounts for the silence of the academic philosophical profession. All my colleagues, should be jumping up and down. So I now come to another difficult and sad topic that I have to address, but I'm afraid I do have to raise it, because you see, we can't have an ethical world without truth. And I spoke yesterday on my St. Luke's address aimed at the Christian world about the silencing culture. Britain has become a culture of silencing. Oh no, things are too difficult. Don't talk about religion and politics. The two things I specialise in. I should just shut up. I notice there's this culture of silencing. Well, no, there's also a time it's got to be that we speak out. Because if we are silent in the face of ignorance and evil, they triumph. As a teacher, I have to speak out. It's my duty, and I'm teaching, internationally now, not just in a small context. So I have to speak the truth, and I think all my colleagues and friends that know me well know that one of my dear friends, Mark Williams, was killed. He was coming to help me with the campaign against Brexit, a very clever lawyer, Cornishman, Liberal Democrat, and suddenly was found dead. Now, I've always intuited that it was murder and that it was a political murder. He was killed for his support of BREMAIN. And this was confirmed to me just within the last week by unorthodox source, like a psychic medium, right? I suspend judgment because I'm not able to judge whether the veracity of the information this woman got is authentic. What I do know is it raises so many questions to me that confirmed my intuition he'd been murdered, that I think it's scandalous, and I want an inquiry, because this man was a dear friend of mine and a good man. If so, he's a martyr against Brexit. And I want the truth to come out during in the next few years, immediately. The allegation that was made, and I'm speaking the truth here, is that he was killed by someone from the CIA in London, right, one night in October, 2 years ago in 2017. A CIA agent who was contracted for them, not, a paid CIA employer, but like just somebody who'd been hired, like a thug, of Turkish origin actually, broke into his house, attacked him, and then faked a suicide. Killed him, made it look like he'd hung himself, faked some suicide notes, and then did a runner. Now, the shocking thing that was divulged by this medium is that the British intelligence knew this had happened and was happening. Whether they knew in advance, I don't know yet. I will find out. And that Boris Johnson knew this had happened, and either knew in advance or immediately afterwards. I want access to those files. I want to know when Boris Johnson found out, because he was head of the Foreign Office at the time, and the so-called, the protocol is that intelligence matters go to him in that role. And now I read a very interesting article recently that some security matters had been withheld from Boris Johnson when he was Foreign Secretary by Theresa May, because he was regarded as a security risk. Well, wake up, people. Of course he's a security risk. I mean, if it's true, then he colluded with the CIA in the murder of my friend and campaigner. That is a criminal offence. That is treason. That is murder. I want him to answer for that. The other thing that's said is that, anyway, I've given a talk about this previously. I'm not going to go into vast detail on it. I will just say that I want lawyers to come and support this work. I would like someone to come forward with legal training that we can actually bring Boris Johnson to court over this and get access to the files, the archives of British intelligence as to whether he colluded in an act of treason and murder, as is alleged by my psychic friend. Now, if he did, he should go to prison. He should go to prison. Boris Johnson is a dangerous rogue if he went to that extent. I would also like to say to my friends in the USA, of which I have many, and I love the USA, if this is true, that one of your Secret Service people colluded in the murder of my good friend Mark Williams, then that is an illegal act, even according to your own laws. The CIA has to be brought under control. It shouldn't be allowed to get away with that kind of stuff. It's disgraceful. I mean, every nation has a right to its intelligence services, but you shouldn't be off killing so-called allies in London in broad daylight in October 2017. I mean, it's shocking. So whoever did it, whoever authorised that, there should be an inquiry inside the CIA itself to expose and find who did that. I mean, I'm appalled that any right-minded person would think that political assassination to support a Brexit strategy that was cooked up by American intelligence, some rogue element within American intelligence at the time thought this is a brilliant idea. I suspend judgment ultimately, obviously, but I would like court action to follow, both in America and Britain, to clear, to find the truth, to get clarity about who authorised the killing of Mark Williams and who was responsible, and then bring them to justice. And if Boris Johnson was playing a role, he should go to prison. Unbelievably, undoubtedly. You see, I don't think politicians should be able to use the intelligence services for their own personal policy ends, especially not in the use of murder and terrible things like that. We're seeing Trump is doing that now with his stuff in Ukraine, and I think he will be impeached over that. I don't think the intelligence... I think the intelligence services are there to serve the whole nation. And the whistleblowers, the genuine intelligence service people like Snowden, and like that brave woman in Britain who blew the whistle over the fact that the CIA were bugging the UN General Assembly delegates and the General Secretary of the UN. And she discovered this working at GCHQ, and then she blew the whistle. And there's a film just been made about her. I used to live near GCHQ. I knew people who worked there. I think Britain has a duty to call the US to account when it's breaking the law like that. And she was a hero to stand up to them. Well, I think we need more heroes like that, madam, because if CIA people are now coming and killing us lot because we oppose Brexit, well, it's time, it's time to rethink whether we actually want to be sharing all our intelligence secrets with them and giving them such access to our to our to our innermost secrets. I think what's happened is that with Boris Johnson and the extreme Brexit lot, I do think they have the backing of the CIA, and I think they're misusing British intelligence to promote their views. I think they're trying to misuse those channels to bend the minds of European Union leaders, Macron and co. They have these dark channels whereby they try and convert them to their side. And they're using misinformation and lies to do it. It's not, you see, the whole thing is not intelligent. What I want is an intelligence community that is actually intelligent and that works for peace, that works for preventing conflict. Like in Syria, I mean, who on earth was advising Trump to think putting these people out is a jolly good idea, knowing the Turks are going to run riot and then it's going to stimulate ISIS people to flee and get their, their project of the ISIS caliphate back. I mean, are the intelligent people at all intelligent that are advising Trump? Or is he just been, has he been hijacked and is he in the pay of people that are actually destabilising chaos magicians who want to create destabilisation in northern Syria? I'm only commenting and asking questions as a philosopher who has a duty as a peace philosopher to look at these tragedies of failures of intelligence. You see, the highest form of intelligence is peace intelligence, is to prevent the war starting, not take actions that will lead to conflict. And that's why I'm against Brexit. As a peace intelligence officer, if you want, for the kingdom of God, I'm saying, no, Brexit is a catastrophe, it will lead to conflict. And anyone with a basic primary school education could work that out. So the only reason it's got as far as it's got and got to Parliament and got these Tories to bay for it is because of the intelligence manipulating through the dark arts and calling truth lies and lies truth. It's the whole thing is a manufactured fake operation as far as I'm concerned. And it has to be called out and stopped. This is why I've written to Her Majesty the Queen, who is technically the boss of all our intelligence services. She has to know what's going on. I also think the Privy Council has been penetrated by misinformation agents and people that are not telling the truth, contrary to the oath of the Privy Council. And they have actually infiltrated and are, so it's a non-viable, it's a non-robust source of genuine policy advice to the Queen, unfortunately. I think every single member of the Privy Council should be sacked. You should then go put them through incredibly strict security. And people that have links to foreign intelligence should just not be allowed to sit on that body. I'm also suggesting in my... Anyway, that's another matter. But the first and foremost thing is to get truth re-established as the only bedrock for security and safety of a nation. We're not going to keep the UK together as a nation unless we all start telling the truth to each other again. After the death of my dear friend Mark Williams, not one single police officer, not one single coroner's assistant rang me up to say, we understand you've got loads of evidence, please talk to us. Nobody came to interview me, and I was the last guy he trusted. I was his best friend, right? And I'm told by my psychic advisor that the police also know he was murdered, and they know who did it. They know it was the CIA, but they aren't going to say anything. Just ignore it, because they're police and they don't want to rock the boat, don't want to cause trouble with Anglo-American relations, so just sit on it. Well, I'm afraid I don't agree with that policy decision, and I want an inquiry into the Surrey police and how they've dealt with this matter, because by silencing and hushing up a crime, which is what it is, they are colluding in that crime. So these police are not living up to their police oaths. Right, I'm going to draw a line under the Mark Williams saga, but you can see how it is connected with the Brexit saga. Because if it's true, and I say, obviously there's a suspension of doubt, I'm an academic, I'm not saying just because a psychic medium tells me this, that's proof. No, I'm saying it's enough proof to then start to want to get like cast iron documentary proof. And if it's true, then it's beyond scandalous. I mean, it should be, you know, this man Boris Johnson should be in prison, and I hope he will be. I want to just say that only truth will prevent self-destruction. What comes about in wars is when the lack of truth becomes so strong, everybody lies, and then it comes to a battle. The only way to prevent war and violence is through peace, is through truth. So this is why the duty of veracity bill that I proposed, and this is why my work as an ethical philosopher over the last decades, and a peace philosopher, this is why I'm Vice President of Philosophers of Peace globally. I'm not the only one, there's a bunch of us, you know, trying to teach philosophy on a world scale so that humanity wakes up in time. And this is why I set up my Institute of Peace Studies and Global Philosophy, IPSCIP, which is now based here in France, but, you know, has links all over the world. What we're trying to do is recreate a dialogue of truth seekers, and this is why I've also taken time out to write a book on 9/11 for the last 2 years, a philosophy and history study, first one ever written, in depth, 1,000 pages, 2 volumes, looking at 9/11 from every possible angle and every explanatory hypothesis, just asking what is the truth, because what I know isn't the truth is the official narrative of the Bush presidency at the time, that it was Al-Qaeda and 19, Al-Qaeda agents run by Osama bin Laden. That is not true, my friend. So if something isn't true, it's either unconsciously a lie or consciously a lie. I suspend judgment, If the duty of veracity was on legally on every congressman and senator in the US, and every official and every president and vice president and cabinet member, we might then prevent future 9/11s happening. The sooner we get that legislation in, the better. And I say in the name of Thomas Jefferson and the American geniuses that founded your Constitution, they forgot to put that in. Because democracy fails if people lie, and that's what's happened. Okay, so yes, I'm just finishing by saying that I sincerely hope this coming week gives us enough truth speakers in Parliament to stand up to the lies of the Tories and their Brexit madness. It is an illness. It's the self-destruction of our nation. It's rude to it's rude to the genuine Conservatives like Anna Soubry, who want the best of our nation. But it's rude to the Scots who, it's beyond rude. It's offensive. It's disgraceful that their respectful views given in that referendum were never honoured. They didn't want to leave the EU. They still don't. And nor do the people of Northern Ireland. The Welsh, I think, are changing their minds. I think they now want to remain as well. And I suspect that if, God forbid, if Brexit goes ahead and the Scots and the Irish leave the UK over it, as they will, I think the Welsh will go as well. And I think that pretty soon it'll just be, the whole thing will be shattered apart. And as a peace philosopher, I'm trying to prevent that chaos and meltdown. And the only way to do it that I know is to tell the truth. And then, of course, there's a problem of, people tell the truth, but their knowledge base they're starting from is lacking. They can only tell the truth of what they know. And people are dealt different hands educationally. And, I'm fairly well educated, and I've travelled a lot, and I've met some incredible people, and I've had great teachers, and I've been fortunate to do degrees now. So I can put all this stuff together, I can piece it together in my mind and work out morality. If I was living on a council estate in Mansfield and I had 2 books in the house and I work in a factory, now I'm mostly unemployed and drinking a bit too much, and all I get is the Daily Mail that I read every day and the news bulletins, my truth will be a bit different. And I will be strongly for Brexit because, it's like, that's what I voted for, and how dare they stop it. And I will be in this little bubble of self-righteous Brexit anger. And that is my truth. And how dare this middle-class intellectual tell me I can't have my truth? So then it becomes a clash between worldviews or truth views, you see. Now, I would say that today is the day in which we celebrate a bodhisattva called Samanta Bhadra, who is one of the great bodhisattvas of Buddhism. And one of the truths I know is that Buddhism is a very interesting philosophical system. And like E.F. Schumacher, I've studied it and became a Buddhist when I was 19 because it seemed to resonate with certain truths I'd experienced, and still does. And what Samanta Bhadra said is that you have to find ultimate truth, but then give it back to other people. You have to share that. Mullah Sadra, a great Shia Iranian Islamic philosopher, said the same. There are 4 journeys the mystic has to take. And the first journey is you renounce everything, you go off looking for the ultimate truth. And you have your adventures, you meet your Sufis, you meet your peers and all that. And then eventually the 4th journey is you have to come back into the marketplace and share it. You can't just stay up in the Himalayas and chill out in the cave. You've got to go back to Mansfield and teach, which is why I went and taught in Mansfield for 2 years. I love Mansfield. I love the people there, Nottinghamshire people. They were wrong, they were misled when they were brainwashed into voting for Brexit. And so to hold on to, it's like an addict wanting to hold on to their poison and say, no, I'm for Brexit, even though it's poisoning me, even though it's going to destroy my country, even though it's going to make the Scots leave, even though the Welsh are going to leave, even though the Irish are going to leave. No, I still want my Brexit. No, I'm afraid then we're into heroin country. We're addicts of a fake poison that gives us a hit, because it gives us the hit of self-righteousness, I'm right, you're wrong. But I'm afraid that's not the truth. The truth is what is really right for this body politic of the UK, long term. And the truth of that is BREMAIN, as I've pointed out through my writings and teachings over the last 2.5, 3 years. So anyway, I'm going to finish there and say that within the liberal tradition of philosophy that I talked about last time with the Earl of Shaftesbury, the MP for Poole, this idea of innate goodness that we have, I think all of us have a duty in the UK to find that and then to do what is good. And even those people that are hooked on the Brexit heroin, they have to do cold turkey and go back to the Brexit-free goodness, the ethics that existed before this drug was sold into their body by, I think, false memes coming from nefarious sources that actually want the self-destruction of the UK. As in the Greek tragic play, whom the gods wish to destroy, they first drive mad. Brexit is our moment of madness. I believe strongly we can recover from it, but only if we go cold turkey and defeat the Brexit madness and restore our common love of ethics and liberty and truth, and ultimately love. Okay, I'm going to finish there. Thank you so much for listening, and may the gods bring us peace this week in this coming crucial period. May the truth speakers in Parliament be empowered, and may the wisdom of John Bercow, who's doing a great job, guide us into a proper extension with the European Union. May they grant at least 6 months, if not a year, so that we can have a second referendum and a general election as soon as possible. And then we can collectively decide to end this Brexit nightmare. Right. Thank you so much for listening. Shalom.